Hello there and welcome to this vlog of January 2024 and a happy new year to you all. I don't think I've recorded now for like a month. I did like a series of recordings back in like early December that kind of saw me through till mid-December. And then I took like a really nice, basically like 3 to 4 weeks of not doing anything really, apart from obviously my regular job, and then I was away for Christmas. But I think I needed that. I think it was trying to run everything in regards to the like this channel and what we do at DFA and all the other things that I've got going on. It was just nice to kind of get some prolonged time to kind of think about things and reset a little bit. So hopefully I am like better for that in the long run. Today, though, I want to kick the new year off by discussing my favourite weapon in BattleTech. Now, this is going to be a relatively controversial choice because the zeitgeist across the BattleTech community, and I don't think I'd actually argue against this because I think objectively there's a very, very strong argument for it, is that the Clan L-Pulse is the best weapon in BattleTech. All pulse weaponry gets that -2 to hit modifier, which is very strong. But unlike their Inner Sphere counterparts, the Clan pulse weaponry has very, very good range. The Inner Sphere variants are basically half the range of the Clan variants, which make them, I don't want to say useless. I mean, I use just like regular Inner Sphere M pulse and S pulses, but the Clan variants just stand out better. The Inner Sphere do eventually develop X-Pulse technology, which still has all the benefits of pulse weaponry that the Inner Sphere have, but it gives them a little bit more range. So if memory serves me rightly, if you kind of look at the Clan range as like 100%, and the regular Inner Sphere variants is like 50% of that range, I think the X pulses are like 75%, so they're not quite at Clan level, but that gives them a significant boon. So the Inner Sphere do fix it a little bit. But the pulse weaponry, just that -2 to hit modifier, is just very popular and it is very, very strong. But in particular, the L pulse clan is just a beast. I mean, you can hit from like a far, far away from your opponent. You get that -2 to hit modifier as well. You're also you're going to be in a clan mech, so you've probably got a better mech warrior, with a better gunnery skill. So it's just one of those like things where I can, if someone says to me, yeah, the Clan L Pulse, best weapon in the game, no argument, yeah, I can't really say much about that. The thing is, though, I don't really play clans. I do play them, and I've kind of got them in mercenary forces, but I'm very strict with BattleTech when it comes to like the mech variants that are being used. So, as a for instance, I don't create my own mechs. You'll have noticed across the years I've never done a video on like how to build a mech. I know how to do it. I just don't like doing it because I think once you introduce that to the game, you add like a real crunchy layer because people are going to design their own like very like mid-maxy overpowered mechs, which is natural. And even if you kind of don't want to do that and you take it in a different direction, I always think you're going to gravitate towards your strengths. BattleTech for me is very much like, or the part of the joy of it is working your way around the weaknesses of the units. Because all mechs, doesn't matter what mech it is, they all have a little weakness or a big weakness. So some of them are like under guns, some of them are too slow, some of them are under armoured, some of them are over armoured, for like the role that they want to fulfill. And it's how you work around those issues which gives you success or failure. And it's why I love BattleTech as a basic game because that's the magic, right? It's working around those problems when you are within like a real time battle. A tabletop battle that simulates real time if you want to be specific about it. But anything that kind of adds an extra dimension to that, and I've spoken about this many times. So like when people, when the rules are going in there and it's really convoluted and adding layers of complexity to it, I don't think you need to do that with BattleTech. I think just trying to work around the weaknesses of certain units is really interesting in and of itself, and there are so many like permutations of what can happen. That to me is really where like the magic and the joy happens on like the tabletop experience with BattleTech. So to that end, I am not, somebody who generally runs Inner Sphere players, like houses, or like my mercenary unit is very much like an inner sphere like force. They do have clan forces, but that's kind of more a narrative thing at my side. But I don't like. I'm not going to naturally just be given a clan L pulse unless I'm playing like a campaign and it's just like on a clan mech that is randomly there or whatever. But usually I'm going up against the clan L pulses. So to that end, me as a player, I kind of I'm not chained to it really, but I've got, if I want to play how I want to play, I'm going to have to choose inner sphere weaponry, which is always worse. Like every single variant of an inner sphere weapon is worse than its clan counterpart, and that's how it should be in the lore, because the clans didn't have the succession wars. Instead, they developed their science and technology. I mean, that's the only nice thing I'll ever say about the clans, by the way, because everybody knows I don't like them. But in terms of their like science, they took the L pulse and the M pulse and they just made it better. When the Inner Sphere got their versions of the L pulse and the M pulse back, they got the Star League variants, which is quite a significant way behind what the clans had developed in the Golden Century. From that period between the Exodus and then returning in 3049. So really then, what I'm trying to get at is, from my pool of weaponry that I'm going to choose from, and to kind of justify this a little bit to you, or the viewer, I will say categorically that my favourite weapon in the game is the Rotary Rapid Fire 5. Bit of a mouthful. Just the RAC 5 is what I'll call it from here on out. There is also an RAC 2 variant as well, which is basically just like the smaller brother of the RAC 5. They were weapons developed by the Federated Commonwealth. I think in and around like the early 3060s it was developed. It's kind of experimental for a time, but then you can just like use it as standard. The clans actually get hold of it as well, and I think are so impressed by it they developed their own version, and it's obviously better because they've got better science and tech than the Inner Sphere, or they're better at like developing weaponry and just making it, giving it better range, or more heat efficient, whatever. In this case with the RAC weaponry, it's basically better range. That's it. There's no extra advantages there. You get slightly better range on the clan versions, and the Inner Sphere's slightly lower ranges, but they're both 10 tons. So there's no difference in tonnage, and surprisingly, the clan version of the RAC actually, or the RAC 5 specifically, takes up 8 slots on a mech, whereas the Inner Sphere version takes up 6. So yes, it's got better range, but that's obviously, I think, to show that they've increased a couple more slots in there. And it's slots in BattleTech are one of the big equalising factors between the Inner Sphere and clans, because the clans are never able to develop mechs with more slots. They're able to develop usually things like double heat sinks that just take up 2 slots, whereas like the Inner Sphere version takes up 3. But in this case, the Inner Sphere has got the advantage on slots, so that's very useful for Inner Sphere mechs, because usually they've got case that takes up a critical slot, or they'll have more. They'll need more slots for like ferro, like armor or endo steel, things like that. So yeah, it's useful for the Inner Sphere that it is 6 slots. So yeah, so that's what, again, just to justify myself in terms of why I am choosing this weapon as my favourite weapon in the game, is just because it is, it's kind of readily available across FedCom, whereas clan L pulses aren't. So that's I suppose my big factor in terms of why and it's on mechs as well that I'll be more prone to using. So it's a convenient weapon for to be my favourite weapon, whereas the clan L pulse would be highly inconvenient because I just wouldn't necessarily naturally use one. Anyway, let's talk about the RAC 5 and just how wonderful it is. And it's one of those weapons that, like, prima facie, it looks quite complex, but it's really not. Once you kind of understand the rule system for it, it's very, very easy. It's not like there's not lots of dice rolling or convoluted rules or anything like that. It's basically, to me, it's just like an upgrade of a UAC weapon. So UAC weaponry is very simple. It's just basically you can do 2 shots. You can do 2 shots one shot more than a regular autocannon, and it's obviously got a better mechanism, so it doesn't jam as easily as a regular AC. That's if you're using the rapid fire rule on regular AC, by the way, just to throw that in there. But what the I always get that. I'm just going to say RAC5 because I always slip up on Rotary. So here you are, RAC5. What the RAC5 does then, it's basically like a giant minigun. And it is equipped with 20 shots in 1 ton of ammo. We'll talk about why you need more than 1 ton of ammo when we get into this. But, on the kind of, in terms of the amount of ammo you take, that can be an issue with the RAC. But it's actually not too bad if you manage it correctly, and you'll see what I mean when I go through the rules here. So the first thing to say is that when you're dealing with the RAC, unlike, I can't think of any weapons that really do this, you get to nominate how many shells you fire. I'm sure there might be other weapons that I'm just unaware of, like in the Ilkan era, that do this. I suppose, the UAC is the same as well. You can nominate 1 or 2, but this is it gives you a much like wider selection to choose from in terms of firing, and you can shoot between 1 and 6 shells. So you nominate it. Each shell does 5 points of damage. So straight away you can kind of see there, how this could be, seen as a very, very strong weapon, because the total of the maximum that you can shoot is 6. So that's a potential 30 damage that you are doing with a weapon that is 10 tons. So that's, straight away. And again, we'll talk about the kind of nuances of how this weapon works, but it's right up there with like the LRM-20. There's no minimum range penalty on it as well. So unlike the LRMs, you're not having to deal with that. Where I'd say that there's a sweet spot though on where to shoot, because how the rules like orientate themselves is they say the following. So you decide how many shots you want to make between 1 and 6. If you are shooting between 1 and 3 shells, you will jam the weapon on snake eyes. So, double 1. If you're shooting between 4 and 5 shots, you will jam the weapon on a snake eyes or a 3, so on 2d6 obviously. And if you're shooting 6, so that's the full amount that you can shoot, if you roll between a 2 and a 4, you jam the weapon. So jamming weapons is obviously not good, because then the weapon goes out of use. But unlike the UAC, the RAC has a mechanism to unjam itself, which we'll talk about later. So it's not the end of the world if you actually jam the weapon, unlike UACs where they just go out of commission. So the sweet spot, and I think this is what I've always thought as well, and I've kind of heard other people talk about this, and people have echoed this sentiment. The sweet spot is 5 shots. Because there's no point in doing 4 really, because you're jamming on 2 or 3 anyway. 5 shots is your sweet spot. 6 is slightly risky because obviously you've got a heightened chance of jamming the weapon. So I'd always say, you operate at the 5. It's only 1 point of heat per shot. So just as a regular AC5, the RAC generates 1 point of heat, which is very, very low. So if you fire 5 shots, you're only generating 5 heat. So that's as much as, pretty solid weapons out there that don't have anything like this level of damage ratio, potential damage ratio. So yeah, it's everything in that is strong. So again, firing 5 weapons, that gives you a potential to do 25 damage at a decent range, at only 5 heat, with just a small slight chance of jamming if you roll that 2 or a 3. So what we'll talk about next then is ammo, and why ammo is very, very important to using this weapon. Unlike, say, in most AC ammo bins, you have, especially kind of at the lower end, like the AC5 and the AC2, you actually get far more ammo than you need usually, especially on the AC2. Like, you're just never, ever going to get through that bin of ammo. Even if you have, you can have 2 to 4 ACs, I still think, AC2s, I still think that, one bin of ammo is sufficient for that. In this, though, you're obviously expending shells at a rate of knots per turn, because you're shooting. Well, I'd say again, operate on 5. You don't have to do that though, but I'd always kind of opt for shooting 5 shells per turn if you can, and you will chew up through an entire ton of ammo in 4 turns because you only get 20 shells. So what you need to make sure is when you're choosing mechs, you really need mechs that have 3 points or 3 tons of ammo. So that gives you 60 points of ammo, and that will keep you going for basically 12 turns, which I think is sufficient. In most BattleTech games they'll go between like 10 and 15 turns if you're playing like objectives or you put set rules on it, so that's usually absolutely fine. I suppose it's a slight weakness with the RAC weaponry, because unlike like I said, on other ACs where the ammo bins are sufficient enough, not on the higher levels, 10 and the 20 you need more ammo. But on this, like, even though the RAC is only 10 tons, you've pretty much got to bring 13 tons across your entire mech just to make it efficient with the ammo and then the weapon itself. But everything else on this little beauty is just incredible. Going down to even the 6 slots, that's fantastic. 10 tons for a weapon that deals this kind of damage, fantastic. And another thing that I love about it, and I think this is more a sentimental thing, is that it really gives like ballistic weaponry more power. It's just an impressive weapon. It's not standard. It's not like the just somebody choosing those like laser spam mechs, which are quite boring and there's no like real imagination to it. The RAC weapon, it's just a beautiful design. Like, whoever came up with it in terms of the rules, I think they just hit like a perfect sweet spot with it. Let's then just talk very quickly about the unjamming mechanism on this. And I'd actually go so far as to say that I might homebrew rules at some point in the future. I don't think I've done it previously, but I do think that all AC and UAC weaponry should be allowed the ability to unjam. It's not an official rule though, it only applies for the RAC 5 and the RAC 2, but it would be nice to get this, or a version of this rule, because it's quite a good rule as well. It's not, it makes you have to basically give up a turn to try and do it, but the rule as written is this. And I'll just read it out. So, in the next turn weapon phase, the unit may stand still or walk, but do nothing else, including run, jump, or use any ranged weapons. Take a gunnery skill check with a +3 modifier. If successful, the rotary is unblocked and may be used in the usual turn as normal on the next turn. If unsuccessful, then the weapon remains blocked. A unit may keep attempting to unblock its rotary AC, but may only attempt 1 unblock per turn. So that's like, again, I mean, if you've got a regular mech warrior there with a gunnery of 4, +3 to that, 7. So you're hitting on that, that bell curve of a 2d6. You're hitting on like the highest percentile roll in the, when you roll 2d6, which is a 7. So 7 plus. So you've actually got a really solid chance of, of unblocking the component as well. I just like that. I mean, maybe if you do it for UACs, maybe you give it a +4 modifier. Or if you're doing it for a regular AC, you give it a +5, something like that. So it just, something to just allow people to do the jam, but then take a turn to maybe your mech's overheating anyway, so you want to cool down. So you just kind of walk it into some woods, take some cover, try to unblock your weapon, and then let your heat come down, something like that. Just any little bonuses, I think, that that ballistic weapons, autocannons can get is a big, it's a good thing within the game, because the laser weaponry is just so overpowered and so dominant usually. So I like to see a little bit of balance. But yeah, that's basically it. They are the rules for the RAC weaponry. I've had great success with it on any games that I've played as well. It's one of those weapons that, when you get into the habit of using it, it's quite terrifying to your opponent. I think it's especially terrifying to larger mechs, like slower heavies and assault mechs, because they're not that heavy. I mean, like if you think about a regular AC5, not that much difference in terms of tonnage. So it can get on like a medium mech. You can put it onto a Wolverine, for instance, which is a fast like cavalry mech. So if you've got a fast cavalry mech like looking to outflank an assault with an RAC 5, and you've got that, in your mindset that you're constantly going to be trying to close in a little bit, maybe outflank it, outflank the opponent, and then you're going to kind of barrage it with five shells from an RAC weapon, all doing 5 damage. Especially if you can get into like an arc, if you get into like the right or the left arc, so you've got a higher chance of hitting on that right or left side. You've got potential to do like crits, ammo explosions, on the side that you want to hit on. Better still, get on the rear. It's a very, very, very powerful weapon. On the right mech, I think it's not something I'd probably put on like assault mechs necessarily. I mean, there probably are mechs out there that have got like double RAC 5s and are 90 tons or whatever, but I think generally speaking, they're very, very well suited to. I mean, I was looking at some Ilkan era mechs in the new TRO for 3150. And there's I think there's a Wolverine in there. It's either in there. It's something that I've seen on Flex or Sana, but it's just a beautiful variant of the Wolverine. It's got an RAC 5. It's got a Streak SRM 6, and then I think it's got one of those. In fact, I might have it here actually. I think I was looking at it before I was recording. Yeah, it's got one of those medium X pulse lasers as well. So that's one of the weapons I was talking about previously, which is like the better in a sphere version of the pulse. So that gives it a 9 total range. So it's really, really strong mech, really like well armored. It's got 3 tons of ammo as well. So it's almost, the more I kind of look into the Ilkan era, and I see mechs like that have just kind of, got as standard like RAC weaponry on there. That really does appeal, because you obviously don't get that in the Succession Wars. You get it in the Fedcom Civil War, but it's a little bit more rare. And I don't think it's like equipped on necessarily the mechs that I'd want it equipped on. Because now, especially in the Ilkan era, I think Catalyst have really tried to kind of give more kudos to the older style mechs to kind of update them so that people can use all the great stuff that we've got in the Kickstarters in the Ilkan era. So great commercial idea by Catalyst, that. But it's just like, just using it, just experimenting with it. It really, to me, it really is like the Innisphere version of the L Pulse, or the Clan L Pulse. It's a weapon that can really kind of change the game for you if you know what you are doing with it, and you get into a methodology of using it to kind of take down assault mechs. Maybe you bring it on 2 cavalry mechs that can just go and like hunt like mechs down. I don't know how like useful it would necessarily be on on lighter or medium mechs. It's usually, I think the success that I've had with it, I've usually kind of focus fire in on a larger mech and just tried to like take a leg off with it, or like give some crit damage or whatever. Another important point as well, I don't think I've mentioned this, but you are rolling on the cluster table when you hit. So if you decide to hit with 5 shells, you then basically you'll roll on the same table as you would for the LRM 5. So a 12 would give you 5 hits. I think I can't remember what all the in fact no, it's here. It's just in front of me because it should be on this Wolverine, and it is. Yeah. So so if you hit all 5 shells on an 11 or 12, so that's obviously quite rare, but you're hitting on 4s on a 9 or 10, 3s on a 7 or 8, and then 2s on 3 to 3 to 5, and then you only hit with 1 shell on Snake Eyes. But generally speaking, you're going to be hitting on 7 or 8, so you're going to be getting 3 shells. That's 15 points of damage. Occasionally you'll look out, you'll get that 11 or that 12, and then you'll hit with 5 and do 25 points of damage, which is, you then roll 5 times obviously on the hit location chart, and then you're really starting to kind of cook with gas, because you'll start to kind of strip armor off your enemy. And obviously with that as well, it'll be an automatic PRS check in regular rules if you were hitting on 4 or 5 shells, because that will give you 20 points of damage. So just a hell of a weapon. And I think people do like it as well. I know a lot of people that like it. I don't think I'm saying anything that's like revolutionary here. I think people generally see the RAC weaponry as very, very, like, it's like S tier level weaponry. But for me, got to say, my favourite weapon in the game. Anyway, gonna leave it there. So Get on that. If you've never played with an RAC, have a look into it. If you do want to kind of mess around with mechs and put custom things on there, I don't think in you kind of playing in the post-Fedcom Civil War era, you could easily kind of put one onto a mech that you like that's got like a regular AC5 on there. You just have to kind of probably jimmy around with the armor a little bit to get all the ammo on there, or maybe take a jump jet off or whatever. But yeah, definitely worth checking out if you never have done. Be interesting to know what y'all think about that as well. Have you played with the RAC? Have you had success with it? I think there'll be a mixed bag of opinion on that. I think because some people maybe they don't know the kind of the 5 rule. Maybe they're kind of being a bit more conservative to try and conserve ammo, or to kind of stop the jamming happening. But yeah, just trust me on that. Just go for that 5 shot. It's spectacular. It's very, very, can be very, very successful. Anyway, I shall leave it there. I shall hopefully be back now just in regular routine. So I'll just be dropping videos every Friday. So I will hopefully see you, from here on out. And big year this year because obviously we're getting the Kickstarter. So I'm hoping that doesn't come too early because I've got a hell of a lot to do with the house and work over the next 3 to 4 months. So I really would be happy if it just came in June like advertised. I know that there are rumours going around that it's going to get to us quicker, but I am in no rush for it whatsoever. Anyway, I shall leave it there, so I will hopefully catch you again next time.